If the city could take any action to combat climate change, not including the things we are already doing, which action would get the most dramatic results in cost savings and/or greenhouse gas reductions? And what will you as a city councilor do to encourage Quincy to take this action? 2 minutes or less.
I think there's a number of things that we could be doing simultaneously as a city to reduce our footprint. A couple of them that come to mind that I'd like to initiate right away is one that I had touched upon earlier with the composting. Again, being LEED certified as a building is a national recognition, and in order to go ahead and get that certification, you have to go through a lot of steps in that building, such as making sure that recycling is happening, hazardous waste is being disposed of properly, trash is going in the right containers, everything is being sorted, and composting for those buildings that also have food facilities inside those places. Again, we are growing very quickly as a city. A lot of buildings are going up. And even if you don't have an office park with, restaurants on the bottom, you do have apartment buildings, and these apartment buildings do generate waste in both recycling, trash, and composting, and we're not doing that yet. And so moving forward, I would like to incentivize these buildings to move in that direction right away before they start building. If they're already developed, they can still go down that process, and that's something that I'd like to do in ways of either contracting out with the company that can give us competitive pricing, working with our current buildings to create separate bins for this, or working with our current office parks to make sure that inside each office they have accessibility to these 3 bins as well. Another thing I'd like to work on is making sure that we have charging stations to promote the use of electric vehicles across the city. Again, going back to development, we are changing our infrastructure. We're changing a lot of sort of the core downtown areas of our city. And as we're building new buildings and fixing the sidewalks, putting up new streetlights, and putting up new trees, so too should we also look at putting in charging stations, because it's not just the folks that will be living in this building in the future. Folks now here in Quincy are moving towards use of electric vehicles, and we need to make sure that we're promoting that and that we have accessibility for folks to come in and use that. Thank you.
So thank you very much. This is a 3-pronged issue when it comes to how we can promote and utilize and mitigate the problems in the city of Quincy. One of the things that we have to do is we started with the solar energy, but we need to buy more alternative energy for our city to be able to do things. It has to be for solar. It can be, we have to research and we have to understand wind power. We have to look at alternative ways to be able to power our city. It might be even with microgrids. We have to find other ways to actually bring solutions to the city of Quincy. The other thing is we need to save more. The idea that energy efficiency is costing us more in the taxpayers, it's actually going to cost us less if we invest correctly, but we can save more by actually looking at our buildings again and focusing on that goal to get them 100% efficient by the time 2050 rolls around. And those new buildings that we're building that are municipalities, they need to be self-sufficient net zero buildings, and we need to look into those to figure out how we can afford to do that and cost it out over time to make sure it's an investment that we can afford and it's an investment that's well worth putting our money into. And then finally, we need to promote other ways to be able to bring solutions to the city of Quincy. And electric vehicles are those, but it's not just for cars, it's for buses. It can be our school buses. The cost of a school bus might cost us more money in the investment up front, but it lasts longer and the fuel costs are actually less money. And there's other things we need to be looking at in the city of Quincy so that we can focus on our future, because it's a health risk when you have those gases that are coming out that are causing health concerns for us. If we had electric vehicles, that would prevent some of those health concerns that we have. It is also an educational opportunity for our students within our schools, and there's also an economic engine part that's driving. If we promote and we actually live by the rules of making our city a green city, we entice people to come here and open businesses to be here in the city of Quincy. So it's not just about buying, but it's also about the future. And then it's also, finally, I'll always go back to education, because it's an opportunity, once again, to bring those solutions into our schools and educate our students on how to be the future leaders in these as we go forward. So we have to look at it as a full global opportunity for the city of Quincy, and then bring it back into how it can be promoted from all the way from schools all the way to our seniors, and how it can be the tax incentives can be here too. There's grants as well. There's so many ways we can go, but we can't go until we start actually doing it, and doing it is now.
It's disappointing that in 2017, with a $300 million budget, we don't have an electric vehicle in our public fleet. Resolutions are not enough. I'll be very disappointed over the next cycle between this election and the next if we don't have at least one electric vehicle. I think it's important that we send a signal that the city continues to send proper messages to even the private companies and private homeowners that electric vehicles as part of a fleet is the best way to go. But I want to talk about making Quincy a multi-dimensional transportation city, walking, bicycling, things like that. So we need to keep on moving to improve our infrastructure, our roads. Our roads need tremendous repair, and that affects gas mileage. We need to fix our sidewalks so folks can walk better. We need to have a bike sharing program, bicycle racks. We need charging stations both for the public as well as private companies. So if we're permitting locations with garages, we need to make sure that they have charging stations. So it's a more comprehensive look at removing vehicles off of the streets, having people feel safe and friendly, that they can walk. Bicyclists have lanes that they can properly navigate. And the good work that's been done in the school system, we need to replicate that across the city with our public buildings. You know, that would be the next horizon for tightening windows, repairing doors, tightening up the infrastructure, continue to remove infiltration into our sewer system. That's huge, to make sure that all of our infrastructure programs are working properly. So for me, it's more of a holistic, comprehensive approach to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get to that renewable energy goal.
You know, like I say, I look at this and I say, we need to be balanced between the cost to the taxpayers and the money that it will save in the long run and the efficiency. I'm all for efficiency, like I said, but to me there's another agenda. I saw a YouTube video. It was really good. It was a table a little bigger than this, and it had marbles that were stacked up very high, and then the person took out and said, okay, that's the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and he took out about maybe 4 or 5 marbles. And he basically said, what they want you to do is to shackle yourselves so that you can take 1 marble away to decrease the global CO2. And it's, when you look at it in perspective, it's laughable. I was there at the State House to testify against the carbon tax with another person in the audience here who is running for state rep. And we basically came forward and testified the reality of the situation. And I'm like I say, I'm all for being efficient, but there's a limit, and you have to have the wisdom to understand the difference. And if you're looking for someone who with the wisdom to look at, to say, okay, does Quincy really need this? Is it going to be really helpful? Then please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. First off, we need to educate the public, and by doing that, we have a lot of different resources we can do that. We have a citywide website. We can also use other sites like Nextdoor and other sites where people can get on electronically and push this information, like activists like yourself, to get this information out there. Have consensus, have different meetings on these things. What we're, constituent service be involved with this as well at the mayor's office, the administration, the city council, the school committee, where everybody can collaboratively give this information and communication. We're looking to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Some of the topics that come to my head is use less heat and air conditioning inside our buildings, drive less and more efficient vehicles, obviously they have talked about, buy more efficient products, appliances, do something what the stores do like Home Depot and Lowe's, where they give you back a rebate for $50 if you buy the new appliance, whether it be a refrigerator or dishwasher. Return the old one, take in the new one. We should be doing that and outfitting all our appliances through the city of Quincy as well. Giving rebates back to our consumers like yourself in the city of Quincy, having a rebate program for that. Use less water, obviously. We can hand wash. We can use it by cold or warm water. And also have computerized light systems where when you leave this building today, in 15 seconds it's going to go off, and have that outfitted even in churches like this that are a little older. And like I said before, we need to educate, encourage others to conserve in general. Thank you.
So I'm just going to repeat the question. It was, if the city could take any action to combat climate change, not including things we're already doing, which action could get the most dramatic results in cost savings and greenhouse gas reductions? How many of you have noticed the public outreach campaign about the gas leaks? So you've seen the phone poles with the signs on them notifying a gas leak. Have you noticed those in your neighborhood by show of hands? Yeah? So you'll be out walking in the neighborhood, and on the phone pole, you could have a missing pet, or now they're having a PR campaign about, hey, be aware there's a gas leak in your area. Every time I leave Blessed Sacrament Church, there's a strong gas odor. They haven't fixed it. I've personally called it in, and it's a matter of, it encroaches the MWRA sewer line, so we're having that addressed when we're addressing the sewer. But I want to hold National Grid accountable. This is having a major impact in the greenhouse gases in our community. I would recommend the mayor and the public works director partner with National Grid to encourage they repair these long-standing leaks to their infrastructure, and they help reduce the greenhouse gases in our community. I've lived in the house I grew up in, and we recently had the gas main replaced maybe 10 years ago. And no, 8. I was new to office at the time, and I was speaking with National Grid about what the expectations were. And the employee said to me, my first day on the job 30 years ago, I worked on this leak in front of your own home. They've never fixed it. I would like to see more extensive and inclusive community engagement as to what effects these gas leaks have and what role the general public can take through these advocacy channels. These utilities are not too big for us to take on. Case in point, I'm working and partnering with Councilor Kroll on the Spectre compressor station. That's a federal application, a lot of homework, the environmental permitting alone. They're reading about the desolate area, and I'm over here saying, geez, I live across the water and I've seen the bald eagle and the most wildlife I've ever seen. This isn't a desolate area. We need to protect these environments, and we need to hold these utilities accountable.